So let's talk about fun stuff like money and finance. Anybody you pitch to in order to get financing, whether it's a bank, whether it's an investor, whether it's a co-production partner, as you can well imagine, will want to see your books and want to understand everything about your corporation, and is going to want to see a lot of information. And having that pre-prepared and ready to go is a critical part of being successful in international, because it's even more important in international. International partners or even clients in particular markets don't have access to the same types of easy to verify pieces of information. As much as you can do Dun & Bradstreet from international, it's actually a bit of a pain to set it up and to be able to do it. So they have essentially somebody wandering from another country who's basically telling them that $100,000 investment will be fine, don't worry. And then here's a Microsoft Word document and both of us have to sign it. Well, how do you verify anybody in international markets and make sure they even exist as a company actually there? They have the same challenge with you. They have to validate that you have been in business for X number. Now, guess what? It's easier to do that in Canada than it is in China. And so they'll have an easier time doing it, but they still need to do it, which means that you have to have enough content that you're willing to share and it's already prepped and ready to go. If you're about to sign a deal and $100,000 is on the table and he says, great, can I see a profit and loss statement? You go, okay, I'll get that to you in 3 weeks. Well, you've just put a big 3-week barrier in front. So you definitely want to be able to make sure that that's there. You don't have to use it, but you certainly want to be able to do it because it's the same information required by anybody that's going to give you money, from a bank all the way up to applying for a grant here in Canada. So make sure that when you're looking at what you have to spend money on, that we cover off on these. Financing market research is huge. It doesn't have to be expensive. Those ideas we talked about, doing a student, doing somebody in market, talk with the Irish Film Board and see whether or not they've got a summer intern that can actually run around and ask very specific questions to your particular type of content. See what happens. These are the types of things that you need to budget for, and it certainly is something that is worth investing in, because that small amount of primary data, primary research can go an awful long way in validating what it is that you're trying to pitch into that particular market. And leveraging your associations are definitely where you go to at least help get those contacts in market. Almost every market that has one of those ecosystems has that type of a system where you've got film students that are looking for stuff to do, and it would be fun to get engaged with an international producer. That's all possible. Definitely find a way to budget for the in-market visits, but then plan ahead. So do at least 2 or 3 trips and then make sure that you understand what the cost of doing those trips are and then budget it in. Because what you want to be able to do is to make sure that you can take advantage of trade missions or being able to go on certain types of very focused market visits that are being run by anybody from an association all the way to an alumni group and be able to take advantage of those. What you don't want to do is have to give up on those, and they were a great opportunity to be able to pitch, and you just didn't have enough money that month. So you need to plan and budget for these, and then try to see if you can leverage and piggyback onto other organized type of trade missions to the market that you know you want to go to and you know that you actually want to invest in. International events, see whether or not you can volunteer to speak or be on panels in international events. 8 months before they do any type of an international event, they'll actually have a call for papers. So submit. You want to talk about the way you produce unique content on the East Coast of Canada, and it's storytelling. You'd be surprised at how many people might actually respond to that, and then you have an opportunity to get one of those credibility markers onto your portfolio. And then we call it the cost of detailed proposals. The investment in pulling together a contract that's going to be larger than $10,000 and is actually going to make or break your company. You have to have the money to make sure that the experts are helping you with this, because there's nothing worse than somebody trying to do an international production for $500,000 and the only lawyer looking at this is the one on the other end in a different country. You have to have somebody here that you can invest in that can actually help you with this. The good news is you don't always have to do it every single time for the same amount of money. You're going to create templates and you're going to create content and you're going to create things that you can reuse over and over again. But at some point, there has to be somebody here looking at this, or else the Chinese media lawyer is going to be the one doing it for you. And that's not always bad if you trust them, but it definitely isn't good if you don't know them. So sources of financing, we definitely want to look at CanExport for paying for half of your trips and your travel into market. That's one of the resources. You certainly want to start talking to EDC now. You certainly want to start talking to your associations as well. But EDC is now extending out the insurance that they normally offer to factories and production and physical goods. And they're expanding that more into services, and they're now expanding that into the idea of being able to offer insurance on a production, where if something went sideways, at least there's some amount of money that might be able to come back. This is a new initiative. They were talking about it at prime time, but it certainly is something to investigate, because if you can get insurance on a production in a market that may or may not be as safe as you'd like to think it is, it's at least worth investigating that to see whether or not that they might be able to even offer something that can protect you and reduce that risk. If you're dealing with anything more than $50,000 in Canadian funds that sits in an escrow account for more than 4 months, somebody has to talk about currency hedging or currency exchange risk, because there's nothing worse than something being announced in the United States and the Canadian dollar goes kaboom and it loses 10% of its value. You owe them $100,000. The money in the account's only worth $85,000. That's bad. But this is typically for anything sitting in an account longer than a certain amount of time that's going to probably be at the 50,000 or above type of range. Get some expert advice if it's above $100,000. Saving 10 grand in currency exchange risk is a huge gain, especially for small to medium-sized businesses.